Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this masterclass on innovation and technology for recovery and reconstruction of housing and critical infrastructure, which is organized by UNDRR, so Disaster Risk Reduction, UNOPS Project Services, and UN Habitat, the United Nations Human Settlements Program. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ombretta Tempra. I'm the Chief of the Land Housing Shelter Section at UN Habitat. And it's really my privilege to moderate this discussion with very distinguished experience and high-level speakers. For us at UN Habitat is really a key topic that we are tackling today in preparation of the World Resilience Reconstruction Conference that is organized by UNDRR in June in Geneva, that we also all hope that you can join or follow. For us, really the work on adequate housing, including in the disaster and conflict recovery setting, is really at the heart of the work we do through our interventions. We have over 70 country offices that deal with this topic in a way or another, mostly through special area-based approaches, land governance, good land governance and land administration, multi-level governance to make sure that actually decisions are taken place at the national, local, and also the centralized community level, really always putting communities at the center. The type of disasters we deal with the most, and also that will be the topic of some of the discussion that we hear today, are really floods, some storms, earthquake, heat waves, etc. But at the same time, also we need to be very conscious of slow onset disasters that we will have to deal more and more with as a global community. So sea level rise, desertification, and land degradation, just to mention a few. In this current times, disaster resilience is really at the center of all the work we do, both in humanitarian development context. Disasters are increasing in both frequency and intensity, destroying homes and critical infrastructure and displacing millions, severely disrupting lives and livelihood, and really undermining also the achievement towards the achievement of the SDGs. An estimated 3.3 to 3.6 billion people currently live in areas that are highly vulnerable to climate-related hazard, the majority of whom really lack the capacity to effectively adapt or recover from these shocks. Therefore, we need all the efforts together, and we need to really leverage the innovation that are offered by technology, but also other type of innovation that we come up with in terms of governance. When we look at the type of innovation, right, there are different typologies, both in terms of the planning and the preparation for disasters, mitigating the risk. Then we go to mitigating the impact and actually fast track sustainable recovery and reconstruction. And all these phases across the crisis cycle have elements that are of governance or participation, community engagement, but also aspects that are more and more looking at the technology part of it. So today we will look at all these dimensions that are obviously interrelated, always with the focus of community-driven, community-based, and community-beneficial approaches, because we know that at the end those that take the brunt of the crisis are the communities, but are also those that are really financing, putting in the hard cash to actually finance recovery and reconstruction efforts. It's estimated really more than 3 times than overseas development assistance. So let's, with the community center perspective, without further ado, let me start by introducing our first distinguished speaker, which will actually join us today through a video. We'll really look forward to hear from Kamal Kishore, which is the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction. and head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Over to you for the video, Helen.
Colleagues and friends, over the last 2 decades, the notion of building back better has become topical. We all recognize that after disasters, when we rebuild, when we reconstruct, when we recover, we have to do it in a manner that we build resilience, we build back better, so that our buildings, our houses, our infrastructure is able to withstand disasters that might occur into the future. Yet, the practice of build back better really has to be taken to scale. It has not yet propagated in the way we had imagined 20 years ago when this term became very, very popular. Why has it not happened? It has not happened for many reasons. Among them, a few of them are these. Number one, countries do not have institutional arrangements that can anticipate that after disasters they will have to manage large-scale recovery programs that will benefit large number of households, individuals and businesses. After a disaster, they are playing around with different kinds of institutional arrangements. Similarly, there is a lack of clarity on how the beneficiary participation will take place in recovery processes, how the technology choice will be made, how grievances of affected communities will be affected. On all of these elements, we know what works. There is a substantial body of knowledge globally based on large recovery programs after the Indian Ocean tsunami, after several earthquakes that have happened in the last 2 decades. All of this knowledge needs to be systematized, and just as we prepare for responding to disasters, we have to now prepare for launching effective recovery programs that lead us to build back better. This will not happen automatically. It is therefore important that we build our readiness for recovery just as we build our readiness to response. Particularly in 2 sectors, housing and critical infrastructure, which are in most recovery programs central to the recovery efforts. As it is said, everything begins at home. When people rebuild their houses, when their houses are reconstructed after disasters, life begins to take another dimension, and we begin to recover our homes, our families, our livelihood systems, our communities. But we have to build these houses in a manner which is leading us to more resilience for the future. So to sort of systematize this body of knowledge and offer this knowledge to a large number of practitioners who will be driving recovery programs in the future, we decided to offer 3 master classes in the run-up to the World Resilient Recovery Conference, and I'm really happy that it has come together with enthusiastic participation from across the world. I really hope that it will be a stepping stone towards making our countries, our communities more ready to launch strong recovery programs that build resilience for the future. Thank you very much. And at UNDRR, we are firmly committed to this agenda, and we look forward to continuing our work in collaboration with our member states, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and the private sector in making sure that building back better is not merely a rhetoric, it's a societal practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for screening this very inspiring video, and that really frames very well the discussion of today. It's my pleasure now to introduce Vivek Rawal, founder, member, and director at People in Center Consulting India, who will give a keynote address. I also note that, of course, we are now all very familiar with the technology of these meetings, but there is a section for Q&A. While you listen to the keynote address and also the panelists, please feel free to put in your question in the chat so that we can answer as we go, and we'll also have a way of answering them live later on in the program. With this, back to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Ombretta. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes,
Can
it
you
is.
just confirm? Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Vivek Rawal from People in Center, India. My sincere thanks, first of all, to the organizers, UNDRR, UN Habitat, UNOPS, and other institutions that are involved in organizing this for having me here. It is a privilege for me to have this opportunity to speak to you all. The topic of my presentation today is disaster preparedness and response, implications for effective recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. I am looking at this topic from the perspective of housing technology and innovation. Based on my experiences, I wish to put forth before you a few provocations for collective reflection. We know that the disasters cause massive damage to housing, but it is not just the physical structures that are lost. Disasters also make people lose their confidence in their own building practices. For centuries, the materials, the artisanal knowledge, skills that had helped people in building their houses are no more trustworthy for them. People are not sure whether they can build good, safe houses or not. So when community is in such a state of self-doubt, most of the times external experts often arrive with designs and technologies claiming to make their houses safer. And in my experience, this weakens people's own agency and confidence. Indeed, if we rebuild people's own confidence in their own materials, their own skills, their own knowledge systems, in their own delivery systems through which they have always accessed design, technology, material, and skills, they can rebuild their own houses again. Once Afghan people in Khost and Paktika province after the 2022 earthquake hit them, they got their confidence back and they rebuilt their hazard resilient houses with adobe, the same material with which they used to build earlier, but in a more resilient way. Similarly, people of Gujarat in India also realized their own material could give them safer houses. They built their own bhungas, the circular houses. My next provocation is technology is patriarchal if it ignores the indigenous practices. Some technologies arise from patriarchal mindset, I mean hierarchical, which believe vernacular materials are inferior, but modern industrial materials are superior. However, this biased prioritization of high-tech modern solutions over grassroots ingenuity can deepen inequalities, can cause exclusion. Not all people can afford to build with these so-called modern technologies. Only a few with lot of resources can do so, which can leave many people behind. This discussion on modern versus vernacular is very important. So while approach to technology must respect and include indigenous knowledge, it must be done with the understanding that the vernacular practices are not flawless. It will be naive to believe that they are perfect. There are some inherent structural weaknesses in the materials. Also, people want something that needs less maintenance. They want houses that will allow them to use modern methods of cooking, sanitation, etc. Also, many a time, vernacular has imposed undesirable social hierarchies such as caste-based labor. So, treating traditions as a static stifles its adaptation. In fact, it actually hinges on an honest reckoning that how do we honor their strength without ignoring their fragility, their weaknesses. Vernacular practices that evolved for hundreds of years have been kind of frozen for a long time now, and research has been focused on new technologies. There is need to take the vernacular practices forward. Improvements in construction, for example, with bamboo and earth, have led to resilient houses in many parts of India, Indonesia, Nepal. There are so many examples. Using modern science with indigenous knowledge to ensure that they become compliant with the building codes is actually empowering for people. So, we should hybridize, not just over romanticize the vernacular. Combining modern and traditional materials has resulted in resilient houses. Bamboo has been used with steel joineries. Lime and cement have been used for stabilization of earthen walls. The picture that you see here shows bamboo houses with cement plaster from flood affected regions of India. So this hybrid approach respects local materials while enabling resilient construction. Empowering people to blend old and new is not only practical but also beautiful. My next provocation is that whose knowledge counts? Is it the expert consultants in the office or the community living on the ground? Very often, reconstruction becomes a top-down process where external experts define the technical solutions for communities to comply. But resilience cannot be achieved by outsourcing. It must be co-created. In Gujarat, after the earthquake in 2001, community design studios enabled households and artisans to collaborate with architects and engineers for charting their own course for their own recovery. These community design studios were the hubs of blending local wisdom with technical rigor. Similarly, the work of ODRC and Community Architects Network in many countries of Asia has shown when communities own their own design process, they innovate settlements in a way no consultants could ever foresee. So there is need to shift from doing for to doing with and replace the prescriptive blueprints with co-creation. Another critical lesson is that resilient housing is not modular, it is mutable. External agencies very often push standardized one-size-fits-all houses with misplaced notion of efficiency and equality and ignore the cultural practices, family structures, local climate, and community ownership. And because it is easier to brand such model designs for their own visibility, people have time and again rejected such settlements. When people build on their own, their houses are different. These houses have identities. They can be modified and added to horizontally or vertically as needs change. Affordability improves, family grows. With examples from Nepal, Afghanistan, India, wherever communities have built their own houses, they do it incrementally, starting with a small house and expanding over time, allowing them to adapt to changing needs and hazards. So resilience lies in this mutability, the freedom and flexibility to grow and to evolve. Donor-driven standards can actually undermine the community agency. People's self-built houses are often labeled substandard, and model designs and standards are imposed. These so-called design standards of the external stakeholders are essentially the reputation insurance. These are imposed to sanitize the messy complexity that the owner-driven processes involve and to convert it into more photogenic success stories. Instead, what we need is to develop guidelines with the communities, not expect their passive compliance. The co-creation of technical guidelines allows house owners and artisans to contribute their knowledge to modern scientific information and then incorporate that into their practice. People are knowledge holders, not just the passive receiver of other ideas. My next point is that retrofitting of is critical. It is not about perfection.
Mr. Vivek.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So replacing every old house with a new one is neither feasible nor desirable. Vernacular homes like stone masonry houses in Himalayas or earthen houses of Afghanistan can be retrofitted to withstand hazards. And even many partially damaged houses can be repaired after the disaster. So this is a picture from Nepal. Yet retrofitting solutions struggle for attention. The question is it the lack of code compliance or risk of reputation? We must shift from this binary label of safe or unsafe to incremental strengthening. Finally, I would like to end this with a reminder that resilient recovery is not a neutral technical goal, but a socio-political agenda. Every decision, whether to use bamboo or to use concrete, to displace or to rebuild at the same place, shapes power dynamics. And in this dynamics, technology and innovation must be on the side of the community as a tool of empowerment, not as a tool of marginalization. Thank you very much for your patience and attention. I hope I have not taken time beyond what was allotted to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vivek. Was a very, very inspiring presentation. Also putting in perspective the technology and how we get there, the incremental aspect of it, the people-centered perspective, and also the fact that choices come together with political weight and shifting of power balance, and the power need to be placed where it needs to be. That was very helpful and very useful to frame. Sometimes the technology discussion tend to go different ways, but to put back the heart in this topic. I'm now moving to introducing the distinguished panelists that will be with us now. I will just introduce them with their names, surname, and titles, while we'll get the full bio in the chat for time interest. The first one will be Ikram Ul-Haq, Director General of the Punjab Land Records Authority from Pakistan. The second one will be James Wanjohi Nyaga, the Project Manager for Disaster Risk Reduction Projects at the Regional Center for Mapping Resources for Development, also known as RCMRD, based here in Nairobi, where I am as well. Mr. Ganesh Bhatta, Joint Secretary and Spokesperson for the Ministry of Land Management, Cooperative and Poverty Alleviation from Nepal. Emanuele Sapino, GIS and Remote Sensing Specialist from the Copernicus Emergency Management Service at the European Commission Joint Research Center. And Kateryna Templeton, Program Manager at the United Nations Office for Project Services. So thank you so much for your time and joining this panel. We really look forward to all your contribution. Going first to Mr. Ikram Ul-Haq from Pakistan. Please share with us your experiences of the PULSE project and how it leveraged digital governance to improve land rights and preparedness in disaster-prone areas. So also reflecting on how digital land governance models like PULSE can be adapted and scaled in other countries, and the role particularly of local community in all that. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ikram.
Thank you. Punjab Land Records Authority started off this project titled as PULSE. PULSE stands for Punjab Urban Land Systems Enhancement. While the name says urban, it's not restricted to the urban side. It actually goes beyond that. PULSE project is what it is doing is creating the digital maps for the entire Punjab. And one of the byproducts of these digital maps is that we are preparing for disasters, and we are right now even in the middle of collaboration between Punjab's Disaster Management Authority and Punjab Land Record Authority. So the disasters that we in general face in Punjab, mostly they are floods from the rivers. Then in certain areas we have the disasters like landsliding. One of the very recurring feature here in Punjab is the smoke particularly in the winters. And then we also have to prepare for disasters like fires, earthquakes, and wars or something of that kind. So the land records is very important component of preparation for disaster. Whenever you have to move into for the efforts of recovery, reconstructions, compensation, you need to have those land records, like who were occupiers of those lands, who were the owners, and how can they be compensated. Even you categorize the wealth of people depending upon the land ownership size, and then you can simply identify the marginalized communities. So we are almost like more than halfway. We have completed 60% of maps, and right now we are doing surveys in the disaster prone areas, and we are getting the attribute data. It's somewhat challenging in the sense that these areas are generally remote. So we gather the data through third party, through our vendors, and then we have to validate that data. We have been able to prepare a sizable number of this sizable quantity of the data, and we are much prepared for any disasters now than we were, say, 2 years ago. We did face some challenges, however, we are learning from it. For the countries that will be that would want to emulate this model, so my recommendation would be to identify the key areas for which the data has to be prepared, the land records data as well as the disaster data. However, one important factor would be to prepare the models that are fit for purpose. Sometimes in our planning, we try to prepare we try to start building on ideal lines, which is not a very good idea because that's very expensive. That's not always possible, and we sometimes in the developing world we have to abort such programs in the middle. So I would rather recommend a fit for purpose model for such kind of data.
Thank you, Ikram. Would you like also to put in a couple of remarks on the community engagement? Thanks.
Yeah, so community engagement is very, very necessary. Even the way we prepare our data, we compile the data. We have those small villages. We identify the village heads, the sarpanch or the village head, and then we maintain a database of all the village heads, and we are in constant communication. And when we move in to prepare such a database, we try to engage the community and brief them what is the purpose of this work, and then we identify the vulnerable people. We identify the role that every individual can play. So we also identify on the territorial side, we identify the places, the safe places that can be used, and then the vulnerable communities, the vulnerable people. So community engagement is always very essential, and it is a community which has a significant role to play in the success or failure of such programs. So the community driven are generally wherever we found that wherever the community has taken the lead by itself, our program of data collection and preparation was successful. However, where there was some kind of resistance or where we could not explain the project very well, we did not achieve a lot of results over those areas. So community engagement, you have to spend something on community engagement. That is the best spent money.
Thank you, Ikram. Thank you so much, and also for also demonstrating how really long-term development intervention, building the land records, and identifying risk areas actually also help in the humanitarian phase. While long-term developmental, more in nature intervention are key actually for the success also of crisis response and intervention, which is often sometimes difficult to message, but so critical as well for resilient and long-term sustainability. Let's move now to the next speaker, Mr. Nyaga from the Regional Center for Remote Sensing. Please, Nyaga, welcome to the panel and share with us how technology has enhanced the effectiveness of flood early warning systems in Malawi and what lessons we can draw from that experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ombretta, and thank you, and special thanks to UNDRR for the invitation to talk in this masterclass. I must start by recognizing the amazing team that is behind the Malawi community-based flood early warning system, the CBFUSE project, starting with the Department of Disaster Management Affairs, DODMA, represented by Mr. Samuel Gama, and then the Sustainable Eco-Engineering in Nepal, who are main implementing partners, the GeoGLOS team, represented by Dr. Angelica Gutierrez and Professor Jim Nelson, and our financiers, the UNDP Malawi, represented by Mr. Ted Nyeka, and the World Bank, and our project managers, Engineer Calvin Swara and the Engineer Mark Olonde. The community-based flood early warning system hinges on 4 main pillars. One is the policy and legal framework, which is a comprehensive piece of document supporting the establishment of early warning systems. And also it's a coordination and governance structure for DRR activities and any hazardous events. It defines all relevant DRM actors from the national level to the community level needed to participate in disaster risk management activities. This is quite important, and it is very critical and a good foundation for the CBFUSE project as we understood. The next pillar is a community-centric system. Here I'm going to highlight and the second part is to ensure that the early actions activated are really comes from the community. And the third part is to ensure the safety of the equipment, that making sure that it is guaranteed. The CBFUSE complements indigenous knowledge like beating drums and phone calling between upstream and downstream communities. The observation, monitoring, and warning of the flood-related information was designed to involve the local vulnerable communities. The CBFUSE itself, the system is installed in the community, manned and protected by the community. Caretakers, there are several caretakers that have been selected from the immediate local community, both at the upstream and also on the downstream part of the river system. The communities themselves and these caretakers make some observations at the designated sections of the river. And also the warning part of the system prioritizes the community and then cascades to our messaging systems, including a very loud horn, which when activated, those hearing within a 2-kilometer radius know exactly what to do, which is now the early action part. The next pillar is technology and the innovation aspect. So the CBFUSE system is a telemetric sensor that is placed in selected problematic rivers that is supposed to observe the flood wave before it reaches the community. There is an upload unit that is that relays all the collected information into a database, and then this part also requires satellite and cell phone connection to be able to relay this information into the database. The database itself is wrapped into a web application visible to disaster managers at the national level, and it has 3-level warning system based on calculated thresholds, including a triggering mechanism for early warning messaging, including a short messaging system and a web display. Further, the system integrates GeoGLOS, which is a global stream flow forecasting system that is partially customized and bias corrected to provide up to 15-day lead time forecast of an incoming flood wave. The final part of it, or the final pillar, is cost effectiveness and robustness, ensuring also replicability of the system. The CBFUSE system in itself, it is aimed to save lives, and every dollar spent in early warning system saves more compared to a dollar spent in response. And the great question here is, how much dollars can you attach to a human life? So GeoGloss is free to use, and the telemetric system is a low-cost, high-tech option, custom-made for the project. This is a direct cost analysis. But from a cost-benefit evaluation, the amount used to establish this system was significantly low, including buying the system, its installation, commissioning, civil works, training, and post-project support, versus the cost that would have been incurred by the Malawian government for recovery efforts that year, which was estimated at $40 million. So a success for this system is where it was installed and working adequately, not a single life was lost in that year. So my key takeaway lessons is, it is definitely possible to create a pathway that puts technology and innovation within a local context. It does not have to be complicated, but rather requires to find the nexus between technology and its applicability. The second part or key lesson is a legal and governance structure that activates national recovery and rehabilitation and reconstruction effort. Without it, not much gets done. But rather they are individualized, disaggregated, and unmanageable efforts that continues. The final key takeaway lesson is the early warning system is your starting point to enhance disaster preparedness and effective response strategy, focusing on the 4 pillars of an effective early warning system: the risk knowledge, detection, monitoring and forecasting, communication and dissemination, preparedness and response, as enhanced by the early warning fall initiative. This is how you end up saving costs that can be redirected for recovery, rehabilitation and reconstruction, and hopefully building back better. Thank you very much, Ombretta, and I submit.
Thank you so much, dear Nyaga. And this was a very clear example also of the different steps and how actually technology needs and can and need to be and must actually be low cost. And also it's important to flag actually not only the cost of the technology, but how much money can be saved. Of course, as you say, the most important here is the cost that cannot be estimated, the human costs, but also from a pure cost effectiveness perspective, which is just a narrow part of it, how much actually they prove to be working, yet how much hard it is to mobilize resources for prevention, and how much easier it is to actually, in practice, then at times mobilize resources for response. Let us now move to Nepal. I'm calling again Mr. Bhatta to present us the case of Nepal. So what were the key policy and planning framework that supported the success of post-earthquake relocation in Nepal? What technology was leveraged to facilitate this relocation, and what was the impact on the communities? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ombretta. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and namaste to everyone on this distinguished panel and in the audience. It's a really great honor for me to be here today to share Nepal's experience in post-disaster relocation and housing. First, Ombretta, let me congratulate you for your assuming a new position at UN Habitat. I think you are already 2.5 months, just 2.5 months, I guess, away from in this role, and I wish you all the success. To the audience and the distinguished panelists, as many of you know, Nepal is among the world's most disaster-prone countries. So one of the studies has mentioned that Nepal is ranked 11th in terms of earthquake risk and 4th in terms of climate-induced disasters. The 2015 earthquake was a stark reminder of this vulnerability, claiming over 9,000 lives and damaging more than 800,000 homes, along with the critical infrastructure and cultural heritage site. I guess this audience already know about this disastrous event in Nepal. So despite limited resources and a challenging geography, Nepal's reconstruction shortly holds valuable lessons, especially in the areas of technology adoption, innovative recovery mechanism, and policy learning. The government of Nepal acted swiftly, a post-disaster needs assessment that was conducted within weeks, and within few months, forming the foundation for the creation of Nepal Reconstruction Authority. So this dedicated institution led the coordinated and the recovery process, developing comprehensive guidelines for housing reconstruction, relocation, and technical standards. A standout feature of Nepal's reconstruction was the owner-driven housing model. So the local community was asked what model they would like to have. And also, I was also highly I was happy to hear from Vivek Rawal that he has a very good experience, learning lessons from Nepal. So he presented the examples how communities should be given the right to have their say while you design, while you develop the standard. So that's how in some of the instances we have been able to incorporate their requirements as well over here. So that was one of the good point for Nepal's success in achieving in short period of time, which provided financial and technical support directly to affected houses. Over 95% of eligible beneficiaries rebuilt their homes using government grants. This approach fostered local ownership and built community resilience. Technology played a transformative role here. We used the housing grant management system, SGMS, to manage data, track progress, and release payments digitally directly to bank accounts of the beneficiaries. Mobile data collection tools, combined with GIS's remote sensing, informed evidence-based planning, especially for relocation. We were lucky to have cadastral data throughout the country, especially in the disaster-affected regions. And one of the requirement for to be able to receive grant was to have land title. But in some of the informally settled areas, there was a problem having the beneficiary having no land title. But later on, the policy was changed how they can be made eligible for receiving that grant. So in this process, we introduced the adaptive policy mechanism as well over here. This approach fostered local ownership, built community resilience. Several innovative practices helped maintain, the pace and quality of the work that we did during this reconstruction process. Mobile technical support team were deployed across remote areas, providing on-site engineering guidance. A real-time grievance redress system ensured citizen feedback was heard and acted upon. Adaptive policy revisions that I already just mentioned were introduced based on field-level learning, showing institutional flexibility. And capacity development of local masons was also very much important in this achieving this success. Training programs for local masons and engineers ensured the widespread adoption of earthquake-resilient construction practices for the embedding resilience in the rebuilding process. Of course, there are some challenges regarding identification of beneficiaries. Sometimes there can be some political interferences. However, the engagement with the local community helped us to go through the identification of these beneficiaries, and the strong leadership of the then mechanism, coordinated partnerships, and iterative learning helped overcome many of these issues. And to conclude, Nepal's experience underscores the importance of the combining institutional leadership, technology-driven solution, community engagement, capacity development, and adaptive policy making in disaster recovery. And also the support from the development partners, support from other stakeholders were played pivotal role in this success. It offers a replicable model for global policymakers seeking to build resilient, inclusive, and transparent reconstruction framework. So to the global policymakers, for the countries like Nepal, we would advise. Our policy recommendation would be to use the key tools that were pivotal in the success were mobile technical support team that I just mentioned, real-time grievance redress system, adaptive policy provisions, and capacity development were the most important key tools to happen that success in the given time. So also the technology, ICT-based technology is most important. And just before we heard about the importance of remote sensing technology. We also use GIS technology. Since we had, already cadastral data, most of the survey department under this ministry has most of the data available, and so these data are instrumental in providing some policy making issues in this effort. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatta. So again, it comes the importance of digitalized digital data, remote sensing, to know who is where and link the people in need basically with their location. So the importance of cadastral data and spatial data, and also technology for managing the response process, the financing, the eligibility, and the monitoring of the response. So these are the two key elements that are really very, very much interlinked and beneficial, where technology really is beneficial, not to exclude the communities, but to simplify the process of reaching to the communities and putting in place solutions that are linked to their needs. Thank you so much. And with this, we'll move to the next speaker, Mr. Sapino from Copernicus. So please let us know how is, just from your perspective and experience, how is geospatial data from the Copernicus Emergency Management Service being used to support emergency preparedness, response, and recovery? Also, what are the advancements in satellite or mapping technology are shaping the future of disaster risk reduction? And perhaps, if you have time, a specific case. Thank you so much, and over to you, Mr. Sapino.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. I have a few slides to show. I hope they are showing right now. And
yes.
Let me start by introducing that the Copernicus Emergency Management Service is active across all phases of the disaster management cycle and using satellite and remote sensing to deliver maps and geodata to the users of this service before, during, or after a disaster. So in terms of emergency preparedness, the service contributes by delivering detailed pre-event mapping products such as vulnerability assessments, exposure analysis, and hazard mapping for disaster risk reduction strategies. And it's also used to inform policymakers about potential impacts. For example, some products can be delivered like wildfire and flood impact scenarios, volcanic, earthquake, and tsunami hazard assessment, and multi-risk analysis. For emergency response, the mapping component is activated immediately after and sometimes before disasters in a proactive way to provide near real-time satellite imagery, offering critical data layers such as flood extent, wildfire delineation, building damage assessment, and infrastructure status to support decision-making and coordination of the first responders like civil protection or firefighters. And during the last phase, the recovery and reconstruction phase, this service can provide assessment and monitoring products like damage assessment and tools to monitor reconstruction over time. Regarding the advancements in satellite or mapping technology that can shape the future of disaster risk reduction, as it is our experience, I would say that firstly, one of the elements is the increasing number of diversity and of satellite sensors, because with more satellites, there is greater frequency and continuity of image coverage. And then improvements in temporal and spatial resolution that enable more precise assessments of damage, exposure, and vulnerability. Then also the introduction of high-resolution radar satellites in the past and now has enhanced our ability to map disaster impacts irrespective of weather conditions or the time of the day, since the radar satellites can work at night or also with cloud coverage. And moreover, the deployment of new generation of multi- and hyperspectral satellites has improved hazard detection and post-event analysis. Then also complementing satellite technologies, the integration of an aerial component, including drones and planes, can provide extremely high-resolution data and more flexibility. Finally, advances in machine learning and artificial intelligence methodologies when coupled with disaster risk modeling, can enhance our analytical capacities. All of this can be summarized in a case study that I can present in these slides. I want to show how one example of how timely geospatial data has influenced the disaster recovery by this Copernicus emergency activation dedicated to monitoring the reconstruction after Hurricane Irma on the Caribbean islands of San Martin and San Barthélemy, which happened in 2017. Immediately after the hurricane, the Copernicus started working on it and delivered detailed damage assessment with imagery from September 2017, so just immediately after the hurricane. Then it started an ongoing reconstruction monitoring that lasted until 2019, so almost 2 years of reconstruction monitoring through satellite analysis. The maps documented recovery progress, indicating reconstruction activities like debris removal, demolition, new constructions, etc. And this monitoring helped the French authorities to assess reconstruction policies, adjust the strategies, and communicate about the recovery progress with local communities and the international stakeholders. Moreover, just now, an updated phase of this activation is currently ongoing, with the results that will be soon published on our web portal. And the upcoming products will update the cartographic dataset buildings, reassess building conditions and reconstruction statuses. And to conclude, these updated products will support the authorities in evaluating long-term recovery effectiveness, planning future interventions, and enhancing communication about the reconstruction. I show you here an example of the maps that were produced. The damage assessment map on the upper left-hand side, and the reconstruction monitoring images captured from very high-resolution satellites on the down left side. So thank you for your attention, and I remain available for any question. Back to you, Ombretta.
Thank you, Emanuele. And that was a very good example, also giving a concrete case. So in a way, the remote sensing satellite imagery is both useful on the kind of really short-term evolving, fast-evolving crisis, like in a case of hurricane, but also we see, and maybe we don't have a case in this maybe presentation, but to monitor, for example, slow onset changes, disaster, like the progressive, for example, reduction or increase of forest coverage in areas that are in dry lands, and how that will also is linked to also floods on the longer term, but also, for example, other key natural crises like increase of sandstorms, of increased heat waves over time. So it's really an aspect of capturing the situation of the ground and then having analysis that can be really done on the short term or on the long term to see how trends evolve and what type of intervention can be put in place. With this, let me move to the last speaker, Ms. Kateryna Templeton, who will give us an example from UNOPS, and it will tell us how innovation and technology can be applied in recovery, both in the case of man-made crisis and natural hazard, particularly looking at AI technology to accelerate housing recovery in contexts like densely populated areas such as Gaza. So how that can be applied also in other contexts, and would it affect and replace manual or human intelligence and manual work or not, and how that can be two complementary aspects. Thank you for being with us, and over to you, Kateryna.
Thank you so much, and good day, colleagues. I think it will be very much aligned, actually, and complementary to what's been presented from the previous panelists. I will quickly share this screen. I have a very small presentation, so you're not only listening my voice. Can you confirm that you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you. So while today, previous sessions, they were more, I think, focused on the disaster risk reduction, especially from the natural disasters. I'd like to highlight how some of the tools we are using for the environment of the conflict can benefit actually both. Whether it's natural disaster or a war, we can agree that people need safe homes, they need work in infrastructure, and they need it fast. And that's where the technologies like AI can really make a difference by speeding up the recovery efforts, by helping saving lives. As you know, in Gaza, many buildings and infrastructure are severely damaged and destroyed in a short period of time. And this is where we really need to act very fast. And this is where AI helps us to analyze satellite images and quickly. Normally, what manually would take the team analyze for weeks, the AI can do in few hours. So it also helps us to understand where the most affected areas are and where it's safer to go. It's also helped us to plan better, where, for example, we can already start rebuilding or removing debris and how to keep people safe. The rapid damage mapping, supporting during the planning, showing us normally the scale of, for example, destruction, but also combining this data, damage data, with the, for example, risk of an exploding ordnance. AI helps us to map out more safer zones. Sorry, I forgot to move actually the slide. And yeah, so for example, you can see on the picture now, they already analyzed how we see from the satellite imagery, and how when we are working through the AI, how the data quality improves. So we can literally see very good quality the roads and what is actually there. So overall, I think AI gives us faster, clear picture by and saving us really time. It's helping us decision to take where to go, and also help us to make people return faster to their homes. I also would like to talk about if, for example, that can be applicable to other contexts. And the answer is yes, definitely. The tools we are using now currently in Gaza can be applied for any other context, like earthquake, floods, storms, whatever you can imagine. And that helps us to assess damage really quickly. It reduces the cost, it reduces the time. And it also helps us to assess some of the areas where, or large areas, or the hard to reach areas more efficiently. But it's not only about the housing. It's the same technology helps us to supporting recovery roads or the water network, so public services like schools. And whether it's the conflict or natural disaster in the areas like the urban areas like in Gaza, this tool helps us to prepare the better and speed up the response. And for example, we are working now with UNDP on a debris management approach. And the satellite imagery doesn't just show us where the buildings are damaged, but it also helps us to analyze the possible volume of debris and also possible contamination in this debris. So with this information, we really support other agencies and partners to provide them real-time information on how to plan their response in faster and in safer way. But answering the question if it can really replace the teams on the ground, unfortunately or fortunately, no. I think AI, it's a great tool which helps us to move faster, to be safer, but we still need people on the ground. We need to confirm the damage. We need to talk to the communities, and it's helping us to prepare for the rebuilding, but not to actually conduct the rebuilding. In the end, the technology gives us more also people, more focus, time to focus on people. So on listening them to understand their needs better, to support them better. But technology is not an answer alone. But when we combine it with the expertise, a local communities-driven approach, it can be really a powerful tool to assist the communities to do the recovery more inclusive. Thank you. I will remain for any questions, if any.
Thank you so much, Kateryna. I think this was also a perfect conclusion of the row of presentation. So we see how actually technology can help us storing data, developing data sets that can be easily consulted, linking different types of data sets, how technology can help us getting faster information, analyzing faster the information we have, and over time linking different aspects of the analysis, being more accurate, being fast enough to provide early warning mechanisms and monitoring processes. But definitely it always still needs human, it cannot replace, needs to be linked with human intelligence, both in terms of analysis, decision making, and while it actually fast track evidence-based decision making, then there is always an aspect of decision that is both consultative but also political to a certain extent, as we saw with the keynote speech, in making deciding how we come in and intervene in resilience. Thank you so much, panelists. It was really a pleasure and insightful listening to you. We have now some time for question answer. I've seen a lot of action in the Q&A box, but I will then maybe open up the floor for a couple of questions from participants, and maybe ask my colleague Helen if she can read out to us maybe one or two questions that haven't been answered from the chat.
Yes, thank you very much, Ombretta. And indeed, we've had a lot of engagement in the Q&A chat box, and some have been answered, but some I'd like to ask them here, beginning with a question to Mr. Vivek on how indigenous knowledge can be integrated with modern technology during reconstruction. It would be nice to hear from you, Mr. Vivek, on that. Let me just try to read several because we don't have much time. Then to Mr. Sapino, there is a question on what programming languages or automation methods do you utilize for managing risk? A question to you. Unfortunately, Mr. Ikram has left because he had a previous engagement, a cabinet meeting. So indeed, there are some questions there which we shall try to respond during this session. Then to Mr. Wanjohi, a question to you also on how the impact on community-based early warning system is measured. If you could expound on that a bit, that would be good. I have seen Mr. Ganesh has tried to respond to some questions, but I will ask this because of the policy implication. There is a question, Mr. Ganesh, on whether you could share some specific strategies for Nepal on how Nepal is trying to enhance readiness for resilient housing and reconstruction. Thank you. And yeah, Ombretta.
Thank you, Helen. That's already quite a handful. Helen Dungu, we haven't introduced her, but she is part of the land housing shelter section at UN Habitat, and the driving force, among others, as well behind this webinar. I don't know if the system allows to take one or two questions from the floor. I can't see.
I think it's only the Q&A, unfortunately.
It's only Q&A. All right. So thank you for clarifying that. In that case, thank you, Helen, for bringing in these four aspects. I would now give the floor to the panelists to respond in the order that Helen called you. So Mr. Vivek, floor is yours.
Thank you, Helen, for identifying and raising this question. So indigenous technologies we have all kinds of experiences. There are indigenous technologies like Dhaji Diwari in Kashmir, or the brick knocking or bamboo houses of Myanmar, and bamboo houses of Indonesia, which perform extremely well during disasters. And there is a need to learn from those practices and improve the practices where for whatever various other reasons the practice has got diluted or artisanal skills are forgotten. That is one. But at the same time, there are also efforts like UNDP and Government of Nepal and Institute of Engineering in Kathmandu together conducted a shock table test on a traditional stone masonry house, and tried to identify ways by which those houses could be made stronger. So there are a lot of such efforts, but of course there is need to bring much more attention and make more efforts as part of regular curriculum of engineering and architecture colleges to ensure that indigenous practices, indigenous materials, wherever there are weaknesses, can be improved upon. And with use of modern science and technology, there are ample examples that it is possible to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek. And I recall actually as well, for example, during the latest earthquake in Morocco, and actually previous cases as well, like old technologies that had like large stone walls actually resisted the shocks much better than modern houses constructed with modern technologies, without perhaps necessarily investigating how modern technology are really adapted to the specific location where these are adopted. So that's very important as well when technologies are transferred or adopted from a different context, to actually see how they would stand the local condition and the local hazards. Thank you so much, Vivek. Over to Mr. Sapino. You had a quite technical question directed to you.
Yes, I've seen that question, and also a couple other questions regarding the technical, regarding the software used, and also someone that said that the Copernicus mapping is very interesting, it can be very useful. And so I put the link in the answer, the link to our website on to reach us. But I have to explain firstly that how we work is that it's an on-demand mapping service. So our maps are produced when they are requested by our authorized users, which are the European Union countries, plus the international disaster civil protection of the EU, and also other partners like United Nations, World Bank, and so on. So it's not that anybody can activate our services, but then when the service is activated, we do not produce actually our products. The production, we supervise the production, we create the technical specifications, but the production is demanded to very big consortia, technically specialized in geospatial data management and so on. So they might use very specialized also software, but I would say in my experience that that with open software it is possible to do most of the GIS analysis today. So I would go for it. So our projects might be complicated, and there are also very artificial intelligence heavy software involved, but I would say that with what you can find online free of charge, it is possible to do very good analysis.
Thank you so much. So there are many tools out of which different options are available to match perhaps the different financial needs as well. Of course, even if we have open software, then there is a component of human training that might have different costs associated with it, which are also to be factored in the choice of technology. Maybe lastly, to RCMRD, if you would like to take the question, Mr. Nyaga.
Thank you, Ombretta. I think my question was regarding the impact of the CBFUS system and how that was calculated. First of all, I should start by saying that Malawi is quite prone to flooding because of cyclones, various cyclones that happen on the eastern side of Africa. Example of Cyclone Idai, Cyclone Freddy, which had devastating effects to the country. And the Department of Disaster Management Affairs keeps stocks of these losses in terms of either economic sense and also how much human lives were lost. And as a result of this analysis, there is a comprehensive data sets that exist within the institution that helps us to understand the historical aspects of it. So once we installed the CBFUS system, a post-disaster needs assessment, of course, was also done, and which is a normal practice to do after any disaster has happened. And once it was done, they evaluated some of the costs that was used for economic response. And from that analysis is what now the $40 million US savings came about. So, of course, some of the key lessons that came out of this analysis is that the nation has to really continue expanding the CBFUS network across the entire country to make sure that the vulnerable communities, those that are impacted by floods, really get the information, the early information, either to redirect them to safer areas or something of this sort. And also a key aspect of the system is the geogloss. I already mentioned about this. It's a 15-day stream flow forecast, which helps us a lot in terms of preparedness. It gives us enough lead time, about 5 days lead time, to prepare for this incoming flood hazard. So that was quite useful. And maybe just a summary of how the impact assessment was done for the CBFUS.
Thank you so much. There's also triggering my thinking that, of course, there is an aspect of putting the technology in place, calculating the savings, then at the same time, the cost of maintenance and the cost of potentially maintaining different type of technological solution that might coexist in the same area. So at the same time, while it's important to innovate, it's also important to factor in the cost of actually managing different platforms at the same times, and then maybe streamlining for cost efficiency, both in terms of technology maintenance, but also the human and institutional resources that will be needed to maintain such technologies. Lastly, sorry, I have one more question that was addressed to you, Mr. Bhatta. Apologies. I give you the floor for the last answer before the quiz. Mr. Bhatta.
Thank you, Ombretta. I was very happy that you forgot me. and thank you, Alan, for choosing the very difficult question to me. So, in fact, I during my presentation, what I mentioned that, in order to ensure the strategies for the resilient housing, the government, then National Reconstruction Authority, adopted, the comprehensive guidelines for housing and relocation. And apart from that, as I mentioned during my presentation, owner-driven reconstruction model was also was one of the most useful tool for ensuring the that strategy. And then technical assistant training, digital tools for transparency, and most important, the community engagement. We are talking about the indigenous knowledge to construct the resilient housing. So the community engagement was a very effective tool during the course of this reconstruction and rehabilitation. And also the policy and institutional framework that NRA established to coordinate with reconstruction effort and developing guidelines for housing reconstruction and relocation. These all were the strategies that were adopted to ensure the resilient housing during the time construction. But at the moment, specifically the Ministry of Urban Development is responsible for developing these kind of strategies, and they do have building codes. We do have land use policies. So even for the settlement areas, what sort of settlement area, the disaster-prone areas should be avoided for the reconstruction, housing purposes. Like there are some these kind of policies, and so there are some comprehensive guidelines as well. So in order to make sure that the housing, the structure are disaster resilient. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Ganesh, for your answer, and also bringing back again the aspects of building codes and regulations into the management of technology, what is allowed, making sure that some of the solutions that are there that are cost effective and that communities can embrace are actually reflected in this type of guidelines, because we see also sometimes some of the guidelines are excluding solutions that would be actually scalable and easily adaptable by the communities. Okay, thank you. I'll hand over now to DRR for running the quiz and reminding that actually this will give you access to a certification as well. So please engage.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me and also see the screen. Greetings from UNDRR in Incheon, South Korea. Those of you who have attended the previous sessions, you recognize the Slido quiz system. You will see on your screen a QR code you can use to log on. In the chat, we will also post a web link for those of you who are unable to use the QR code. But I can see already that quite a few people actually are able to join us. So that's wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll wait a little bit longer while people log on. And as you log on, you will be asked to create a username or a nickname, if you will, or you can just put your regular name. And then you'll be able to join the quiz. Those of you who also have joined before will remember that you need to answer questions correctly, but also quickly if you are to maximize your points that you will receive. And we will have 5 questions. All of them are sort of true or false questions. And for each of them, you have about 30 seconds to answer. So we'll give it a few more seconds as people are still joining in big numbers. And while we're waiting, many people have asked about certificates. For those who have attended all 3 sessions, but certificates will be generated electronically, and you should be receiving a link to those certificates in the next couple of weeks for you to download those certificates. So we will then go ahead and start the quiz with question 1, and it will still be possible to join the quiz as we go along as well. So let's see if we can get question number 1 here. So true or false? Reconstruction must be a top-down expert defined. Reconstruction must be top-down expert defined. True or false? So that one was false. We need experts involved, but as we've heard in this series, we also need the participation of the communities themselves and other groups as well. So it's really a collective exercise. So not only expert defined, but really all of society defined, if we can use that expression. So we will move on to second question. True or false? Resilient housing is based on mutability, adaptability, and flexibility to the contextual needs. So true or false, resilient housing is based on mutability, adaptability, and flexibility to the contextual needs. True or false? Yeah, almost everyone said that was true, and that's correct. Definitely, resilient housing needs to be based on the contextual needs and flexible adaptability, and etc. Number 3, true or false? Redrawing zoning and land use needs to be done by professional planners alone. Redrawing zoning and land use needs to be done by professional planners alone. True or false? Yeah, most of you answered false, and that was the correct answer. Indeed, professional planners must be involved, but again, local communities, local authorities, and other stakeholders also have to be involved in this process. Number 4, true or false? Resilient recovery is about returning to the status quo. Resilient recovery is about returning to the status quo. True or false? Most of you answered that was false, and indeed that's the correct answer. We've heard a lot about Build Back Better in this series of masterclasses. So it's not about returning to the status quo, but the ideal is actually to build back better and build back more resilient. Then the final question, there is no such thing as a natural disaster. All disasters are human-made. True or false? There's no such thing as a natural disaster. All disasters are human-made. True or false? So that was a trick question. Here the correct answer was true. And the point there is that human choices, whether choices by individuals or societies, have a huge impact on determining whether a natural hazard turns into a disaster or not, or if it becomes a big disaster or a small disaster. So the point is that human decisions or human-made decisions help determine whether a natural hazard becomes a disaster. So that was the quiz. We see that user SSD was the winner, the one who gathered the most points. Joy Muller and Errol Merquita, also congratulations. Back to the moderator.
Thank you, Alf. And this was a very interesting quiz. And thank you all for engaging. Also, those who put your answer in the chat. And definitely adds a different perspective and some more thinking to the debate. I will now ask the UNDRR to screen the video of Jan Davis, who will add some additional wisdom to this discussion. Professor Davis is a professor, a visiting professor at the Kyoto, Lund, and Oxford Brookes universities. And after this video, we'll give a final word to the panelists to reflect on all the discussion and inputs at the session, and then we'll close. We'll be a few minutes late, but please, if you can, remain with us. Otherwise, we understand that people have other commitments, so you'll be excused. Over to the video.
Hello, Ian Davis here, and greetings from Oxford, England. It's a really great pleasure to give this summary at the end of this exciting masterclass. I'm very sorry not to have been with you. This was recorded the day before, and you've probably heard contributions which I haven't yet seen or heard. So my apologies to my colleagues if, in fact, I don't refer to the jewels that you've been presenting. I can only relate to what I've seen already, and I've also going to take the liberty of giving some of my own thoughts as well on these important topics. The overall theme of our masterclass, as you all know, is in fact innovation and technology for recovery and reconstruction of housing and critical infrastructure. James and Gaga reminded us of the need for all DRM, disaster risk management, to occur within a context. And that context is of a robust government policy with a strategy, with laws, and with a management framework. I think it's just worth really underlining that point, that technology and innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. And it will only really happen if there is a government key role in this whole relationship. And we've got to emphasize the role of government in making sure that this takes place. And James highlighted certain very important concepts about inclusivity, of making sure that this gets to the people who need it, of stakeholder coordination, of having community centered right at the center of all this, and equitable systems in place. We had many discussions about tools, and there were a galaxy of tools which were described. For example, from Nepal, after the reconstruction, where we had from Ganesh, housing grant management systems, mobile-based data collection platforms, direct-to-beneficiary digital payment systems. And he highlighted the importance of minimizing corruption, of better monitoring, and of building trust. It reminded me of the famous statement from Charles Handy, the management guru: the more trust you have, the less control is required, and the more control you have, the less people will trust you. And so trust and control are crucial here, and building trust with community is absolutely vital. Emanuele Sapino and Ikram from Pakistan highlighted the massive value of one of these tools, the GIS-based recovery assessment systems, and how through the magic of a GIS system, which I've personally operated with and seen happen, where you have all these variables like land and occupants and vulnerable properties and livestock, crops, food storage, ownership, flood protection works, and coordination, all synthesized and all being organized through this marvelous way where we can get these spatial systems where we can look at it and analyze in a way that would never have been possible 30, 40 years ago. So we have some really great tools at our disposal. Maybe I could just, at this point, just challenge one of the assumptions that was made. In one of the papers before this masterclass, there was a statement made: community access to technology is paramount for effective and sustained recovery. Is it? I think we need to unpack that statement a little bit. For example, which aspects of technology? Traditional technology, innovative technology, cutting-edge technology? Which part of the technological spectrum are we talking about? And which part of the community? The whole community or the vulnerable community? And if it's the vulnerable community, that includes children, the elderly, disabled, etc. Which part of the community needs which tools? And why do they need it? What benefit is it to whom? So we've got to really ask a lot of quite probing questions. In any society, the ones I've visited in the 53 years that I've worked in disaster recovery work, in any society, there are multiple actors running around. And they're all very busy and they're all making different contributions. There are government officials, of course, there's private sector interests, there are local leaders, there are disaster experts, and there are NGO personnel. Compounding that, many of them are coming from outside the community. So there's external and internal actors. And each has a contribution, and also each perhaps has dangers attached. And each requires different technology tools. So we need to actually think about the self-interest of these groups. I remember working with one group after an earthquake in Italy, and they wanted to promote prefabricated housing. And when I went to the exhibition in London, there was a great banner across the entire exhibition hall saying, "One man's disaster is another man's marketing opportunity." And they were regarding the disaster in Italy as a total commercial bonanza. And it was pretty distasteful. I'm not suggesting that private interests are always like that. Of course they're not. But there are always issues about what are the interests of a particular group. And in any society, technological access and innovations will affect all of them, but to what extent? And what local community groups need access to which aspect of technology, and how do we work out that question? And what are the barriers to technology application in terms of cost and education and the cultural barriers? And what about the selection of the tools? And what about this key question about innovation within traditional societies? We had some lovely discussions during this masterclass about broken lives and about fragmented, diminished communities, and about the collapse of buildings. How to bring all these things together, how to resolve them all. One of the big takeaways that I take from this discussion came out from Vivek, his great in his speech at the very beginning, where he in fact gave his keynote, and he talked there about the whole complexity and the recovery not just of buildings and of infrastructure, but of people, and with confidence and dignity and agency and resilience. They all seem to be incredibly important points. I've just got a couple of quotes to end with, which I thought were quite interesting. Steve Jobs wrote about innovation, and he said, "Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not a threat." And I think today we've seen many, many opportunities to look at, explore, investigate, and apply. And regarding technology, Sean Geraghty said, in a very wise comment, "The technology you use impresses nobody. But the experience you create with it, with that technology, is everything to everyone." Really important. So thank you all for a terrific masterclass and for all those who organized it and for all the benefits we've obtained from these 3 exciting encounters. Thank you all very much indeed, and good wishes.
Thank you so much, Professor Davis, for these words of wisdom and for having really thoroughly analyzed as well the contributions that were going to be made before. So I'll give a last 2 minutes word to the panelists to reflect on all the discussion. Maybe we can start in reverse order, starting with Kateryna. Sorry.
Thank you very much, colleagues. It was a great discussion, I think, and I've seen that I think towards presentation I presented, it was a lot of questions. Unfortunately, there is no time to answer all of them, but just to say, maybe in the end, one example from the experience working with AI, that in Ukraine last year, with like AI very much tested, we had interesting situation when we looked at the pictures and we tried to run through the AI to analyze, for example, the exact contamination in each location. And one of the AI tools we use, for example, analyze the big landmine, which is anti-tank mine, as a fox. So as you can see, I think towards that, it cannot fully replace, it's still learning. So maybe, I don't know, it would be worth to combine all the questions and send them to us, and we will try to answer some of them. But thank you very much, everybody, for listening and for interesting question and discussion.
Thank you, Kateryna. Emanuele?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to close some points. Essentially, we at the Copernicus want to make the data that we provide accessible and useful for the users that will use in the disaster management cycle. So we always strive to gather all informations also from activities and like this masterclass, which were I found a lot of interesting contributions. And my last talking points would be that for us, and I think in the community, not only on the remote sensing and GIS community, but all disaster management community, our most important focus should be on standardization and openness of the data. I've seen many questions related to this in the chat. So we always strive to be open. Our products are free and open access to everybody. You can find them on our portal. Whenever we produce something, is free and openly downloadable, all the data, all the reports. And then also we always try to have a connection with our users through user feedback forms, and to also trying to stay upfront with our website to be as much connected as we can with our users and the public in general. Then we try to participate to occasions like this and many more to do capacity building and training, where we can like teach our ways, but also to learn from other experiences. And we also try to involve the communities in the early design of the technical solutions. So we might use maybe some, as it was mentioned, some, let's say, high-level software and so on, but everything comes from the base. So we always try to design our technical specifications with the user needs in mind. We start from the bottom, and we try to see what can be delivered that is useful and reusable and integrated in the systems of our users. So it's for us very important to be open with our users and the public.
Thank you, Emanuele. Mr. Nyaga.
Thank you very much for this session. It was quite an interesting session from the panelists and also from the questions that were asked. I think my parting message is that we have to wrap all the technology and innovation to local context. We have to really learn what the impacts that the various disasters have, and then kind of scale down the technology and innovation to work within this context. So as RCMRD, we really have a model that we have applied successfully, and we are looking also to increase our partnerships in other countries as well to replicate this cost-effective model for the benefit of various nationalities. So we welcome any relationship towards this effect. And thank you very much to UNDRR for organizing the masterclass. Over.
Thank you so much. And lastly, Vivek.
Thank you, Ombretta. My own last words are only to thank you and all the people who've been working on this. It was an excellent platform, excellent opportunity to have such good audience, and it was great to listen to the panelists. I learned many things from presentations of panelists, and finally the Professor Davis has a lifetime work on this. His words of wisdom are the last words, which we all should listen to. So nothing more from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek, and sorry, Ganesh, again. I skipped you, but please come in for the last.
Thank you, Ombretta. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm already in my car, and so thank you so much, Ombretta and UNDRR for this opportunity, and it was quite enlightening to me. And thanks to the professor for summing up the the masterclass and what has been learned and what are the challenges that can be drawn from this masterclass. And from the during the panel, I found a complete set of issues that should be addressed for disaster responding disaster. Like Vivek rightly mentioned, the challenges of how if you undermine the local community's interest, then they may not accept you. Like he gave an example from Laprak from Nepal. So it was the government relocated them in government land, but the local community did not accept that. So if you allow local communities to have their say and then respect their say, then you can nicely respond the issues from their side. So it is a great learning. And so from Kateryna, from Emanuele, from James, how technology can be embedded in responding the disaster is quite enlightening to me as well, being also from the field of GIS, remote sensing and land sector. So it is also quite enlightening to me. And so once again, I thank you very much, Ombretta, for nicely moderating the session, nicely contextualizing the issues that needed to be addressed in different perspective. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Namaste.
you so much, Ganesh. We are coming to the close. Maybe just a couple of points from my side. Definitely the fact that the use of technology will help us better understanding, collecting, analyzing the huge complexity that is out there when we deal with the disaster or conflict, reconstruction, resilience. But at the same time, while we are facilitated by technology, we should use new technology to better understand and analyze this context. We also have a bigger challenge, let's say, in bringing down then this complexity to something that can be simplified and easily used at the community level. So in a way, this easiness of analysis and data collection brings a more enhanced need, let's say, of conceptualizing this complexity and conceptualizing how these processes can be simplified, easily used, maintained, and rolled out at the local level to actually be easily accessible by the community and understandable, and easily the community should be able to easily interface itself with this enhanced analysis. So this really brings again the crucial role of institution laws, streamlining the processes, and probably these are aspects that go well beyond the use of technology, but the governance of the process, and it's at the end impact the way the technology will bring down the impact at the community level will only be positive if all these aspects work well together. So bringing this galaxy of tools down to the community, to the community advantage, as Professor David was saying. To close, I would like to thank you so much for participants, for your time and attention. Thank definitely UNDRR to organizing, making the space for this, and for having us, UN Habitat and UNOPS, as contributors. I would like really to acknowledge the huge amount of work that went in from the different teams to prepare for this session, organizing it and bringing it to you. All the materials are available. The session can be relooked at the UNDRR website. And most importantly, this is in the run-up to the World Resilient Reconstruction Conference. So we would like really to invite all of you to be there, follow the discussion. This will be hosted by the SRSG Kishore. So we really thank his invitation, and which was also presented at the opening for us to interact with this important platform, and to keep in mind the learning that we had from this session in our respective work going forward in our respective daily life with our roles, to make actually reconstruction more resilient and inclusive, including through the use of technology. Thank you so much again, and have a good day or evening or night, depending on where you are.